Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami, Tadiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Tadiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Tadiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May they be free from suffering and its causes. May they never be parted from their happiness beyond suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment to the near, and aversion from the far. I shall cause this. Great compassionate Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every types of offerings, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all of my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in all the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for all sentient beings. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. However innumerable all sentient beings are, I vow to save them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddhist way is, I vow to follow it completely. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Tayata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhisattva. Tayata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhisattva. Tayata Om Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhisattva. So, new subject starting today, and who knows how long it's going to take to go through the commentary on it. No idea. We'll see how we go. Some things could be very simple, very short explanations, commentaries. Other things may take a bit longer. And as I mentioned to you in previous weeks, that I will read the the translator's preface, because good information. And then we have about 7 pages of introduction. So I'm going to read all of that to you. And obviously we won't be able to get through it in the one go, or 2 goes or 3 goes even. But what I'll do is I'll read it. And if I think it's necessary, then I will give commentary on that. Okay, so because they're good teachings and good information. And some parts maybe I can add to, maybe some I can even correct. If I come across something that I feel a little bit that way, a little bit this way. Let's see. Okay. Hopefully you're looking forward to this new subject, a little bit different. And as mentioned to you, it comes in the cartoon form. That's the cover of the book. So Zen speaks, shouts of nothingness by Tsai Chi Chung, translated by Brian Bruya. Of course, my pronunciation of the names may be wrong. And yeah, that's it really. So let's do some short meditations. Short today because we can get into this. We have been doing quite long meditations for this short class, that is. And in some previous weeks during the conclusions, 8 conclusions. Of course, it probably 1 or 2 if we were having face-to-face 2-hour classes, but we're not. So get yourself comfortable for some meditation, initially to release the tension in the body. So bring your mind inside your body, and from the bottom to the top, release whatever tension you can. From all around your feet, and lower legs, knees, and upper legs, and all around your midsection, and all the way up your upper torso. So from the lower part, lower back, etc., to the middle, to the upper parts, to between the neck and shoulders, and then from the shoulders all the way down to the tips of your fingers. Look up to your neck, releasing the tension. Then all around your head, the back, sides, from all around your face. And finally, the crown of your head. And so very briefly scan your body again, just to see if there's any leftover tension. And if there is, release it. And now bring your focus initially to the tip of your nose, and follow the feeling of the breath as we breathe in our nose all the way into the lungs and back out our nose again. Follow the feeling of the breath as you breathe in and out. You can also count the breaths from 1 up to 10. And if you get distracted on the way towards 10, going back to 1 at that time. So if any thoughts arise, any mental activity arise, don't cling to it, don't grasp at it, or try to force it away either, or deny it, but simply and naturally replace your mind back onto your breath. And as you do so, let go of such mental activities. And if your mind becomes dull or sleepy, wake it up a little bit by refocusing on your breath more brightly. So let's practice like this for a little bit. And I feel pleased, and let's switch techniques to loving kindness meditation. If you're really happy with yourself for engaging in the meditation practice and the Dharma practice as a whole, there is nothing more precious in this world. That's why we call the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha 3 jewels, because they're precious. Also known as the triple gem, if you like. In Pali, Triratna, Sanskrit, Ratnatraya. So now fill yourself with universal loving kindness, utilizing the visualization of filling your whole being with the white light. Really feel it, helping you to create, you could say, or maintain even a gentle mind, loving and kind. Mind able to deal with anything that you may be confronted with in your life, whether on the cushion or off the cushion. Fill yourself with so much loving kindness that it now overflows and radiates outwards. So the white light leaves your heart center and initially enters into the heart centers of your loved ones in front of you. Fills them with the white light, a universal loving kindness too. Have the wish that they are happy, free from suffering, and are peaceful. And that also includes strangers, and do likewise. And also enemies, and do likewise. And so now we will radiate this universal loving kindness beyond just human beings to all sentient beings, whether you know about them or not. Every different type of sentient being, excluding none. So around your immediate area initially, all the beings that live on the land, under the land, fly through the air, live in the waters, whether born from wombs, eggs, moisture, or through transformation. Whether big or small, short or tall, seen or unseen, near or distant, born or still to be born. May they all be happy, free from suffering, and be peaceful. So filling all of these living beings with the white light, this universal loving kindness. And now throughout your whole state or county. And throughout your whole country. And throughout all of the countries in the world, as well as all of the bodies of water, such as the oceans, and so on, and down to the core of the earth and to the outermost atmosphere, above and below and in all directions, without hindrance, without ill will, without enmity. Now radiate your loving kindness throughout the whole solar system. and galaxy and the universe and beyond. For your loving kindness pervades throughout infinite space. And now we'll recite the dedication prayer. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of the Buddha, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And may the precious view of shunyata, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. So as mentioned, we'll get straight into this book, because we have a fair bit of introduction to do. There's a little article in here from so long ago, I imagine, from a paper in Los Angeles in 1998. The rest of the date is cut off. But it's Zen and the Art of the Solitude, Leonard Cohen, singer-songwriter and a poet. Leonard Cohen is training to become a Zen master. There you go. So, this person spent a week with him in the hills behind Los Angeles. Interesting. Forgot that was there. Maybe I'll use it as a bookmark or something like that. Maybe I've got bookmarks already. Okay, the back of the book says, a beautifully illustrated introduction to the philosophy and wisdom of Zen Buddhism. Zen has been described as the greatest non-religion in the world. Of course, whether you class Buddhism or Zen or whatever as religion, it's up to you, up to the individual. As a way of life, a science of mind, there's many different ways we can express it. But actually, the Dharma, true Dharma, goes beyond all of these expressions. It's inexpressible. It's wisdom gone beyond, unthinkable. But of course, right now we have concepts, so we have to think about it. We have to express it so that we can share it with each other, so that we can learn it more ourselves, absorb our being with it. Yeah, it depends. Like some people will say, oh, it's not a religion. But I would say to that is actually, if training your mind to become pure, to realize what we call enlightenment, if that's what you call religion, then it is. Realizing the truth, of course, we have a way to go before we do that, but realizing the truth, if that's what you call religion, then it is. But it's not limited to this idea of religion. Okay, so that's my first bit of commentary. Up to you what you call it. These are just words. You don't need to call it anything, actually. A wholly Chinese invention, Zen has evolved into a traditional way of life for those free spirits who come to understand that life is everything and nothing. And you could also say neither everything, neither nothing. When we talk about the heading of this book, or the subtitle actually, so the main heading is Zen Speaks, and then Shouts of Nothingness. It's not nothingness, it's like everything doesn't exist. But it's free from concepts, free from expression, free from thinking about, So just to remind you that when Buddhism traveled from India, it would often adopt certain cultural habits or certain cultural ways of living and looking, depending on where it went to. Now, when it went to China, for instance, sometimes over the mountains, sometimes by sea, then it adopted the Chinese way. Now, remember Taoism and Confucius teachings, they were very similar in a sense to Buddhism. Many different concepts different concepts related to Buddhism. Okay, different beliefs, related to Buddhism. So Buddhism would have adopted some of the phrases used by these other traditions. maybe on the outside influenced, but on the inside not so much, okay? Different way of expressing the same thing as Buddhism in India. And as Buddhism went to other different countries, it would have adopted certain cultural ways of those other countries. Otherwise, how can it be integrated into the society? How can it enrich society? The people would probably reject it, most of them, because it's different to the way they think. An example of that are the robes. As you know, especially in modern times, but even years ago, a couple of thousand years ago, 1,500 years ago, whatever, they adopted more of the, you could say, Taoist type robes. So the Chinese style clothes, like this one. This is Vietnamese, but it comes from the Chinese traditional way of dressing for monastics, for even lay practitioners as well. So maybe the old style robes of the wraparound robes, which are still utilized, of course, in many Buddhist countries, especially Theravada countries, maybe they weren't really acceptable to the Chinese way of thinking and living when they first went to China. So maybe they adopted them. Remember, it's not the clothes that allow us to attain enlightenment. Maybe certain clothes will help us to remind us to practice the Dharma, but it's not the specific clothes. There's different colored robes too. For instance, in China, they're more like tan colored, with gray colors as well, sometimes, with the underrobes especially. Vietnamese, gray, dark brown. Tibetan, the burgundy and the blue, which are the national colors. And Japanese, black robes a lot of the time, not always. And so on and so forth. Okay, so don't be confused by that. Many people are non-Buddhists. Many people are. I think it's like different footy teams or something. Maybe your footy team has black and gold. You barrack for them. So if you see black and gold monk robes, nun robes, maybe you barrack for them. I'm joking around now. Okay. Those colors, by the way, are Leanne's team Richmond. So that's why I mentioned it. Hopefully give you a little bit of a smile. So a wholly Chinese invention, Zen, has evolved into a traditional way of life for those free spirits who come to understand that life is everything and nothing. Zen Speaks is an illustrated adaptation of the early Zen Buddhist classics of the 13th century. So coming from the Japanese tradition in the 13th century, also Korean, maybe prior to that in China. Collected and popularized by the best-selling Chinese illustrator Tsai Chi-chung. The book includes over 100 Zen tales for today's reader, bringing to life the spirit and philosophy of Zen. Its ineffable insights, its rich unfolding of spiritual beauty and peace, and its unveiling of the intangible charm of uncertainty and nothingness. Each story is told in a series of richly illustrated cartoons with a text that is at once irreverently humorous and yet replete with wisdom and understanding, complete with the original Chinese text. In beautiful decorative panels along the sides of each page, Zen Speaks vividly and entertainingly brings the essence of Zen philosophy to life. So may I suggest, if at all possible, that you get yourself a copy of this book. I'm hoping that it's still available. So this one's published by an imprint of HarperCollins Publishers in London, and also was first published in the USA by Doubleday Publishers in New York. No, that'll do, actually. Okay, so basically, it'd be good if you get your own copy. I did think at one stage for each teaching that I would take a picture with my phone of the teachings and put it on Facebook, but we'll see how we go. Um, I'll try to, and if it turns out to be okay, then I will do it. But if it turns out to be, pretty sort of rubbishy, then I won't. But I may see about that. But try to get your own copy. Why not? You might as well. Just like having a nice meal, nice nutritious meal. Have this book, and you'll have it all the time then. So the translator says, when this first book in the series, Zhangxi Speaks, came out in America, a common initial response was, it's very charming. But what is it? I see now that this is understandable, since these books are comic books, first of all, and comic books about Chinese philosophy and literature on top of that. For those who would like to know more about how the book came to be, I offer the following short introduction. Sa Chi Chung is the most accomplished and popular cartoonist in all of East Asia, and several of his books have been incorporated into the public school curriculum in Japan. He began his career at the age of 16 by publishing the first of what would be approximately 200 action comic books. Following that, he went into the field of animation and garnered himself in the Chinese equivalent of our Oscar, while building up the largest animation company in Taiwan. In his spare time, he turned to the humor of comic strips and put out the first daily comic strip in Taiwan newspapers. One day, on a flight to Japan, he began to sketch scenes from a book he was reading. The book had been written over 2,000 years ago by a famous Taoist thinker named Zhangxi. From this emerged a new genre in the book world, a serious though light-hearted comic book explicating a profound topic. His aim was not to simplify, but to clarify. The ancient language in China is difficult for modern people to understand. So in addition to illustrating the subject matter, he also wrote the text in modern Chinese. I must remind you as well that the word dhyana in Sanskrit, which means mental absorption, known in Pali as jhana, is the initial word for Zen. When it went to China, it became chana with the accent, and then it was shortened to chan, and then it changed to sion when Buddhism, this type of Buddhism, went to Korea, and then when it went to Japan, it became Zen. Okay, that's simple. So it comes from the word dhyana. Okay, I think I've lost my spot. Okay. When Zhangxi Speaks came out in Taiwan, it shot to the top of the bestseller list, and the head of a major publishing company immediately remarked that it had world potential. Tired of animation by now, the author sold off his company and spent all of his efforts on the daily strips and his new series on ancient Chinese thought, both of which were bringing him unparalleled fame for a cartoonist. Soon he held the 4 highest spots atop the bestseller list, until other authors insisted that comic books no longer be included on the list of serious literature. There are now over 20 books in the author's series and millions of copies in print, and his books are rapidly gaining popularity all over the world. Zen Speaks, as the title suggests, is about Zen Buddhism, which is more of an attitude towards life than a system of strict religious beliefs. The episodes depicted are for the most part short dialogues between various well-known Zen masters and their students. Most are drawn directly from pre-modern Zen source literature, from such books as the Platform Sutra of the sixth patriarch of Chinese Buddhism, Master Huineng, also known as the Teachings of Huineng, the Transmission of the Lamp, the Gateless Gate, the Blue Cliff Record, and the Record of Ling Shi, or in Japanese, Rinzai. The author translated the laconic classical Chinese into highly readable yet technically accurate modern Chinese, which I have done my best to render into familiar, idiomatic English, taking care not to oversimplify. Because the history of Zen Buddhism spans a period of over 2 millennia and was expounded by numerous Zen masters speaking various languages. The names of all these people can become rather confusing. To keep you from stripping or tripping over all the names, I have attempted to simplify and clarify in the following ways. 1, you will find a quick and easy to follow pronunciation guide for Chinese names in the back. I encourage you to use it, as the pronunciation of a Chinese name spelled in English is not necessarily self-evident. Names of Indians, or 2, names of Indians are spelled from the Sanskrit. Names of Chinese are spelled from the Chinese, and names of Japanese are spelled from the Japanese. This may seem obvious, an obvious thing to do, but it is not always the case. It may also be worth noting here that I do not follow this pattern for other technical terms. Instead, I use Japanese Zen rather than Chinese Chan or Sanskrit Dhyana. I use emptiness rather than the Sanskrit Shunyata. And I use the original Sanskrit Nirvana rather than, say, bliss or extinction or enlightenment. Number 3, an unfortunate circumstance in regard to Chinese translation is that one system of Romanization gained almost universal acceptance for a time. Then China switched to another system, and the rest of the world has been trying to catch up ever since. I use this relatively new system called Pinyin, and for well-known names, I include the old system in parentheses, in brackets. In regard to the Chinese, at the margin of each page, it is retained nominally for reference purposes, as it contains the original text in some places, and notes thrown in by the original Chinese editor in other places. More to the point, it is a nice decorative touch. The reader shouldn't get the impression that he or she is missing out on any essential information. I should also add a note here on the swastika that appears on illustrations of the Buddha and on some monasteries. By the way, swastika is a Sanskrit word, okay, meaning omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. Those 3 together. It's a sign utilized in Buddhism, but also predates Buddhism, to some Hindu traditions and so on, okay? It was adopted, unfortunately, by the bad guys in Europe at that time, and changed a little bit. It is an auspicious diagram from ancient India that has come to be a symbol of Buddhism in China. It should be distinguished from the swastika and its associations of horror from recent Western history. Many thanks are due to Professor Robert Buswell of UCLA for vetting my translation and suggesting useful corrections. Any errors that remain are my own. So he's obviously apologizing just in case he's got some errors. And so didn't take too long. We've only got hopefully you found that interesting information. At very least can give you some confidence. This type of information is good for us to know that it comes from reputable sources, genuine sources. genuine writers, genuine editors, and obviously learned practitioners. Otherwise, how can they write the teachings? So the introduction, I'll start, from next week with that, and said something about the back there as well. Yeah, like I said, I think it'd be really good if you can get your own copies. The more I look at it, actually, because I haven't picked this book up for a very long time and thoroughly read it 20 odd years ago. So I rejoice in your studies, your practice, your sharing the Dharma. I appreciate you taking your time to listen to the Dharma Talk. And I rejoice in your meritorious goodness. If ever you find you're falling off the path, just recognize it. Have the non-clinging regret, and then make a positive, strong resolve to get back up on the path again, not engage in the same types of negativities. Do this purification practice with the thought of the Buddha, Bodhisattva, your teachers, and engage in the practice wholeheartedly, utilizing the 4 powers of purification. And then I will rejoice in that practice of yours. You can purify the negative karma that you may have created